The Ohio River Valley's best country. Thanks for listening to 95.3 WIKI, Carrollton, Madison.
The following program is paid for by the Rick and Rick at Night Show.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. It's November 5th, 2012. The night before the election. I'm Rick Roos. My partner Rick Berry and I are delighted to be here once again. How are you, Bulldog?
Well, Rick, I got 2 solid hours of sleep last night, coupled with laying in bed for about 10 of those. And I expect the same thing to happen tonight. My stomach's in knots. I'm worried about tomorrow. I'm real anxious for the country, but also comforted in the fact that I think some good things are going to happen.
I'm so jazzed up. It's like the night before playing softball, and you can tell with the lousy intro I just did. I'd like to shout out and express our true thanks to our friend Doc and DuPont and so many others who have served our country so valiantly and continue to serve our country so valiantly. We've got a rockbuster. We got blockbuster of a show tonight, and we're leading off with the candidate for the 66th district of the House of Representatives here in the state of Indiana, Justin Stevens. Well, pal, we got 12 hours left.
Feeling good about the campaign. We've done everything that we can do up to this point the last 4 or 5 months, and now we leave it in the hands of the voters, and hopefully they'll choose me as their state representative here in District 66.
What are the 5 key priorities that you've heard from particularly Jefferson County residents, but also Scott and Clark, that you wish the voters would consider when they enter the voting booth tomorrow?
Well, obviously people are concerned about the economy and jobs, and they don't want someone in there that's going to tax and spend and get rid of jobs. So, they want someone who's going to represent them, who's going to serve them, who's going to make the environment make the environment good for the economy and for when the recession begins to subside. They want Indiana to be in a position where we can add a lot of jobs. So that's one issue. They want someone, like I said, who's going to serve them. They want someone who's going to look at the issues that are important to them. We've talked about substance abuse. We've talked about education. They want someone who's going to put a priority on our children's education. That's going to be me. So those are just some of the things that, as I went around and spoken over 6,000 or 7,000 people, those are the things that they want to know where you stand, and they know where I stand. I've made that clear over the last few months, and we're excited to see the response of the voters tomorrow.
Well, Justin, and again, we're at the final stages, and I want to remind the voters out there that you are a constitutional conservative. That draws quite a contrast between you and your opponent, Terry Gooden, who is quite the opposite. But I remember the first time you were on our show, you said you were running because you were scared for the future of your children, and I think I told you that was the best answer, in my opinion, you could have given, and that's why I'm excited about your running. Not only for that, but other things as well. But when you said that I'm doing it for my kids, that's one of the reasons I did the Tea Party, was for my kids.
Yes,
so
sir.
I was very impressed that you said that.
Yes, sir. Well, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for leaders who are going to look out for the next generation, the generation after that, not what's politically expedient for them. And so I have a 2.5-year-old at home and a 9-month-old at home, and I want to make sure that they grow up in the same environment that I grew up in, and even try to make it a little bit better. So, as we're here on the eve of the election, I'm thinking about them more and more. I'm really excited to spend a lot more time with them starting tomorrow, instead of out knocking on people's doors. I've enjoyed meeting all the voters, but I do miss my kids. And that's my focus. I want to make sure that they have a state and a nation where they can grow up and they can become whatever they want to be, and where it's a playing field where there's so much opportunity, and that's really exciting for me.
Do they still remember who Daddy is?
They absolutely do, and they saw my face on the TV, and my son about went wild. So
Daddy, you're famous.
Yeah, they still remember Daddy. I try to be home as much as I can, and try to get them to bed most nights. So yes, but I'm really excited about spending a little bit more time with them.
And your wife did something very special on the refrigerator a month or so ago, did she not, as far as a countdown?
Actually, it stretched across our whole dining room, and it is so awesome to look up and to see those paper chain links started at 70 days left, countdown to victory, and tonight we have one more link up there, and that's it. Tomorrow morning we get to tear that down. We head out before 6 o'clock in the morning, and we get to claim that victory. So it's a very exciting day, especially for my wife, that those links have been taken off, and we started our countdown at 70. We have one left, and then we'll hopefully be serving in the Indiana General Assembly.
You know, I used to be the biggest sports fan, and for what I guess maybe it's old age. It's waned on me. I'm still a big Colts fan, and I remember how excited I would get like when the Louisville Cardinals won a national championship. But how nervous I'd be before that. But I have never been as nervous as I am tonight for tomorrow. I mean, I am scared because it's the future of the country. If Louisville loses,
yes,
it really
sir.
doesn't have an effect on my life. But
I am a huge Cardinal fan. And so the last time they won the national championship, I was 2.5, 1986.
Now I'm really feeling
I got really excited in 2005 and 2012 until they got beat by Kentucky this past year. The only night that I remember ever being this nervous was on June 29th of 2007. And that was the night before I got married.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm nervous for a lot of different reasons tonight, but yeah, I will definitely not sleep tonight. So if you guys see me out at the polls tomorrow and I look really, really tired and I'm wore out, well, you know, it's because I've been working so hard over the last 5 months and because I didn't get any sleep.
Well, and I'd like to remind the voters of how hard you've been working. You came to my door, and you've got a huge area to cover, and the fact, you know, a lot of candidates don't even go door to door, because it's just overwhelming, and you are doing that. And I want the listeners out there to realize that we have a candidate. If he's going door to door and he's working that hard, he's going to work just as hard when he gets into the House. So when you go to the polls tomorrow, I want you to remember you probably haven't seen Terry Gooden, but you very well could have seen Justin Stevens.
I'll tell you what, and like I said before on your show, yeah, that's the type of representative I want to be as well. The representative that is out hard, you know, working hard and doing everything he can to represent the people of the 66th district. So I want to carry that on into the General Assembly.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to Justin Stevens. I'd like to remind the voters that Terry Gooden walked away from the General Assembly not once but 2 times. And Justin, if you'd like to wrap up what you think about that, as well as your final wish for tomorrow.
I'll tell you what. You know, I've been out working this hard. I'm definitely not going to walk out and go to another state. You know, we've tried to run a positive campaign, but bottom line is you all have had someone serving you that's walked out of the state 2 years in a row, and I promise you that I will be in my seat every day. I'll be there, and not only will I be in my seat, I'm not going to be a placeholder. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be representing you to the best of my ability and meeting with you as many times as possible and serving you well. I look forward to doing that, and we're looking for a victory, whether it's by 1 vote tomorrow or 1,000. We're looking for a victory tomorrow, and we're positive about it. So looking okay.
Well, we look forward to that too. I hope tomorrow, and I believe tomorrow is going to be a great day for conservatives, not just Republicans, but conservatives and Reagan Democrats for that matter.
Thank you for your time, Justin. God bless and keep you, my friend, tomorrow and always.
Thank you all. Appreciate your support.
We'd like to welcome once again to the Rick and Rick at Night show a great friend of our show and candidate for the Indiana House of Representatives 69th District, Jim Lucas. How are you, pal?
I'm doing wonderful, Rick. Thank you.
The night before the election. Are you excited?
I could not be any more excited. Everything's looking great. I think it's going to be a great year for all conservatives.
I do too. You know, Jim, there's one thing I'm not worried about with you. This is Rick Berry. You're one of those guys, no matter what happens tomorrow, I think you'll be able to say, I did everything I could. You've run a great campaign. Your passion, you're as passionate as anybody I've seen as far as putting out what you believe in and, you know, working, going door to door, the signs. I mean, that's what makes me so confident about what's going to happen tomorrow for you.
Thank you, Rick. I mean, those are kind words. And we do have a great message. I mean, it applies to everybody. We're not looking for any special groups. We're not targeting any one individual group of people or specific class. You know, our message is one that reaches out to everyone, and it's liberty, freedom, limited government, accountability. And when you stick to those, you have a society that enjoys peace and prosperity.
You know, if you had one thing to tell the listeners out there tonight, maybe 2 or 3 contrasts between you and your opponent, what would those be? So people that maybe are a little bit undecided right now can go to the booth and know why they should vote for Jim Lucas and not for your opponent.
I like my opponent. He's a nice man, Jim McCormick. I've known him for many years, but there obviously is a huge difference in values and belief in the role of government. I believe in a limited, accountable role. My opponent believes in an expanded role. He is a major supporter of Obamacare. He's written extensively, numerous articles to the editor in our local newspaper in support of it. I am as against it as what he is for it. Now, with that said, we obviously have to do something about health care, but another government mandate is certainly not the answer given the historical circumstances and the consequences that we've had to deal with. Another thing that my opponent likes is the education system. Now, I will be the first one to acknowledge, and I'm the biggest fan of all the great men and women that we have that are teaching and are in the administrative role in our school systems. But, you know, the public schools, when you look at the facts, the last 40 years, the SAT scores have gone down dramatically in the reading comprehension. They've only gone up 5 points in math. And that's after the hundreds of billions of dollars that we've sunk into government-run education. Now, what we need to do is, on the education, is free up our teachers and administrators and get the bureaucracy out of the system as much as possible and let them do their job. You know, too many teachers right now I talk to, they're teaching to a test, which is, you know, that's nothing more than bureaucracy. But if we free them up and let them do what, you know, their heart is in the right place for, they want to teach the kids and they want to educate them, by all means, we need to get out of their way. So education, the role of government, jobs. I am a small business owner for 13 years. I currently have 12 people working for me. You know, the last 3.5 years have been the most difficult, horrible economic climate in over 70 years. My opponent is a product of the government-run school system for 40 years. You know, I have to deal with a budget. He deals with something, you know, more taxes, raise your taxes. And not saying that he's doing it in a bad way. It's just the system that we both came from. I know how to create jobs, and I know what it takes, the type of atmosphere we need for job creation, the bureaucracy that has to be dealt with on a day-to-day basis. You know, I'm personally responsible for every payroll check that I sign. You know, I risk my assets every day to make sure that those checks are good. And I used to working with people. You know, I compromise every day with my employees. I have to keep them productive and happy every day. My customer, obviously, is what makes the world go around for us. We have to provide them with a product at a price that they're willing to pay, yet that enables me to be able to pay good, productive employees, pay my bills, and provide me with a living. So all of those things are things that I have to deal with on a daily basis, and I don't get to deal with the budget, you know, that if we're short, I just scream, hey, we need to raise our taxes.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to Jim Lucas, candidate for the Indiana House of Representatives, 69th District. Two little questions, Jim. As far as your opponent, we know where Dave Cheatham and Terry Gooden were as far as walking away from the responsibilities in the House of Representatives. They walked away twice. Where does Jim McCormick come down on that? And then where exactly is your district in Jefferson County or overall, because this reaches up to radio goes up to Seymour as well?
Well, as far as I can't speak for my opponent. Again, I like Jim, and I think he's a nice man. But you have to look polling and all the mailers that have been going on. Who's financing them? A lot of them are geared towards education. So obviously he has some people in charge of him that are controlling his campaign. They've been some pretty nasty attack ads. I like to stick with the truth and facts, but we're getting a lot of guilt, fear, lies, and deceit coming out from my opponent's campaign. So obviously, if somebody tells him to jump, he's going to jump. Just as in the past 2 years, we've seen that. That's a fact. Now, as a former Marine, a dormant Marine, I like to say, I will never walk out. And I can give you my word on that. I'm going up there to represent all the constituents of District 69, not just a select few, as I said earlier. I will never walk out. I will be up there doing the duty of the people in the best manner that I see fit. As far as our district goes, it is a new district, and it goes east-west pretty much. We have a big majority of Jackson County, a large majority of Jennings County, and then 4 townships in Jefferson. We've got Republicans, Smyrna, Lancaster, and Graham down there in your own neck of the woods. So,
You know, Jim, I can relate to what you've been saying. I'm a small businessman too, and it's amazing to me. You know, I talk to all my customers are small business people too, and I never bring politics up into our conversations, but more often than not, they will. I have not had one small business guy, and I can swear to this, that's in support of what's going on right now. I mean, once they know where I stand, it's almost like you unleash the floodgates of their emotions, of how they're feeling, how scared they are. And what you just said, it's amazing to me how through history, government cannot run anything. I don't care what country it is. Government cannot run anything as efficiently as small business or the private sector. And it's amazing how many people, even in our country, still believe, and I know them. I know these people. Some of my friends still believe the government can do it better than the private sector. It just boggles the imagination.
Absolutely. I've been campaigning on this for years now. Look at the principles and values, and I've narrowed it down. I believe that conservatives, and I'm not talking Democrat, Republican, because I don't play the party line. I look at the issues and the person and where they stand on things. But the four values and principles that I've come to believe in best represent our point of view is truth, facts, reason, and logic. Now compare that to what we're seeing from the other side, and again, not Democrat, Republican, but those that believe in big government, and it boils down to guilt, fear, lies, and deceit. And just look at the history. You know, that's all one has to do is just look at the history, the consequences, and the results of big government.
Well, absolutely. Jim, I don't mean to cut you off. We got 30 seconds.
That's fine.
Hey, we wish you well. We got less than 12 hours to the polls open. You got 20 seconds of wisdom to impart.
Well, get out and vote. Throw the Democrat-Republican thing aside. Neither my opponent nor me know everything there is to know. We will get elected. Whoever's elected will go to Indianapolis. We will learn the issues. It is our value, judgment, and experience that you're voting on.
And I will say this. This is Rick Berry, and I've gotten to know Jim over the last year. I consider you a good friend, and I will tell the public, if you're on the fence, Jim Lucas is a tremendous candidate. And as far as local candidates, one of the best candidates I've ever seen. So if you're on the fence, my advice would be vote for Jim Lucas. Jim, we're really hoping for great things tomorrow, and we wish you the best of luck. We know you've really worked for it.
And we'll talk to you after you're elected as well.
Well, hopefully that's the case. I look forward to it, and thank you to you guys for all your help.
God bless and keep you, my friend.
Amen. Take care.
Take care, Jim. This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're the voice of liberty here in the Ohio River Valley. We'd like to welcome once again to the Rick and Rick at Night show a great friend to our show and candidate for the United States House of Representatives, Luke Messer. Are you there, my friend?
Rick, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being there, buddy.
Great to have you.
Night before the election, are you jazzed up?
Well, you know, it's been a long year, but a lot of fun traveling all over the district. Obviously, we've spent a ton of time down your way, and we're very optimistic about tomorrow, but we're going to work all the way through the finish line.
Hey, Luke, this is Rick Berry. I want to talk about me for a minute. I've never been so nervous in all my life. I mean, I almost feel like if this is what a nervous breakdown feels like, I think I've got it. Have you got any advice for me about tomorrow to make me feel a little better?
Well, I mean, you know, I've met with multiple Marines in the last couple weeks who have said to me, and it was interesting, they didn't even know each other, but who both said to me they've heard more people say they're scared for the future of this country in the last couple of months and years than they had in their entire lifetime combined before that. And obviously, I think we all understand the stakes tomorrow are so important. And, you know, at this stage of the game, just the night before the election, I mean, we all have an opportunity to email, make calls, do a few things for our friends. And then in this country, we count. You know, tomorrow is the day that we'll count. And I'm very optimistic that not only will it be a sweeping election for Republicans and conservatives, more importantly, in Indiana, but across the country. And I think we all have to say our last prayers tonight. With prayers come peace. And get ready to go count tomorrow.
You know, Luke, to me, there is definitely something going on out there. We talked about it at the Ohio Theater there. I did. There's a feeling I get. I can't put my finger on it, but there's a momentum out there. There's a spirit If you look around town, just here in Madison, Indiana, I don't know how it is north of here because I haven't been up there for a couple of months, but you look around Madison, there's Luke Messer signs everywhere. I think I've seen one Brad Bookout sign in the whole town. And it's kind of that way even with the local elections and the other elections with Richard Mourdock and Romney. You would think it was just Republicans running if you drove through our town. I mean, there's signs everywhere, and the other side doesn't seem to have much going for them.
Yeah, I mean, that event at Ohio Theater was remarkable. I mean, here you were in the middle of a Saturday on a cold day, and, 300-plus people. I don't know what the exact count was, but it was at least that many. And people who care about this country showing up to see that important movie. You're right, all throughout the district, we've had that same kind of support and seen it for the other candidates. And believe me, I mean, I'm honored to have the opportunity to be the standard bearer for our party in this race for Congress. But I understand this election's not about me. It's about our country. It's about the fact that people understand that we've been poorly led as a nation by this president. They understand that we need to elect leaders like Mike Pence, frankly, who's been a great, outstanding member of Congress, who will go to Washington, fight for limited government, fight for our freedom, fight for the principles we all know are there in the United States Constitution. And tomorrow night's the time. We've all heard our friends. We've all talked to folks who maybe historically have voted Democrat and now are saying they're leaving the Democrat Party. The thing about Election Day is it's when the talk ends. It's sort of the equivalent of sports when you get between the lines. And I think tomorrow is going to be a big, big day for those who believe in liberty.
This is Rick and Rick at Night. We're talking to Luke Messer, candidate for the United States Congress from the 6th District. Luke, and the national security thing's foremost, but because basically it seems like our president has played fast and loose with the truth. I saw a thing, the other two pictures, basically the Navy SEALs took out, when called upon, took out Osama bin Laden, but when the Navy SEALs called upon the president, he denied them. He left them. And that's this is wrong. I mean, you guys got a big thing as far as heavy lifting with the national security, let alone the economic clip that we're on.
Well, you make a great point. I mean, it's the most recent example of the failure of this president. I never thought in my life I would see the national security of this country treated as the political football that it's been treated over the last 6 weeks or so. The facts that have unfolded over the last month, facts that were known in real time, frankly, to this president and his leadership, have shown that there was no world in which this could have been deemed a protest of a minute-and-a-half movie trailer. This was flat out a terrorist attack. It's becoming more and more apparent that at least whether or not the president, at least the leadership of this administration, knew in real time that these folks needed reinforcements, and for whatever host of reasons, failed to do it. I think the response to the action has been weak. We need to be clear as a nation that we will demand that the men and women serving our nation in our foreign services must be kept safe. And if the countries where they are stationed will not keep them safe, then those men and women should be brought home and all aid cut to those nations. It is time that we be clear about where we stand as a nation. And as you and I have, with both of you guys, Rick, we've talked about, this all has to be understood in the context of the rise of a nuclear Iran. I mean, the reality is Iran is getting closer and closer to nuclear capabilities. If that happens, our world is changed permanently. I mean, these are folks that have a jihadist mindset, and the idea of, the classic Cold War idea of mutually understood destruction doesn't apply to folks who have the extreme Muslim ideology that they espouse. And so we have to be clear that we stand with Israel over there, and we all need to understand that, frankly, it is highly likely, or at least highly possible, that there are going to be major events in that region of the world, and if that happens, we ought to stand with Israel. What do we have instead? We've got a president who refuses to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, and make no mistake about it, the folks in that region of the world notice when we don't do that. And I'll get back to your next question, but I think it's important for your listeners to understand, this is just the latest example. that we have a president who at a minimum is not equipped to lead this nation.
You know, Luke, I wonder, you look at guys joining the armed forces these days. I really wonder who would want to join the armed forces knowing they've got a commander-in-chief that doesn't have their back. And it's amazing to me how many in the administration, including the president, from day one and for 2 weeks, they knew exactly what happened. It was a protest, a spontaneous protest against a movie. And once after 2 weeks, that was proven to be a lie. Then they came out with a story that we have to gather the facts and we can't say anything now until we know all the facts. It's just amazing how they lie to the American people. And I hesitate to use the word lie because sometimes there's a nuance about it. They used to call President Bush a liar, but we know there was a lot of nuance there. But this is definitely a lie. It's a flat-out lie. You can't describe it any other way. And I hope when you get into Congress, because I'm confident tomorrow you're going to get in, no matter what happens, this president, if we let him get away with it, then future presidents will figure they can get away with it too. We have to get to the facts, and we have to bring the president to justice on this, because I think we got treason, possible treason, definitely lying, and definitely not protecting our troops when they needed to be.
Well, one, believe me, I will be a champion for getting to the bottom of this. We need, that has to be done for no other reason than to honor the dead who were not protected that evening. Secondly, I think you're right. It has far broader implications for our country. And the thing that I want people to most understand is in a modern age with the kind of technology that we have. Remember, when the Marines went in and killed bin Laden, the president was watching it in real time. And whether he was watching these events in real time or not, people with close access to the president had this information in real time. And there is no world in which they could have believed what they were saying when they were calling this a protest in response to this bad movie trailer. And then to have our president go to the United Nations and essentially reiterate that apology and cite that example again, days after knowing that it wasn't true.
Luke?
It's an event I never thought I'd see in our life.
I hate, we could talk forever. We've got 30 seconds. And again, tomorrow is the big day. I am not worried about your winning the election. I'm not worried about Mike Pence, but I am somewhat worried about the other offices. So you got 20 seconds? You got anything else you want to say to the public out there before we sign off?
The bottom line, thanks to everybody who's helped us in your area over the course of the last year. We're humbled by that support. We need your support not only in my race, but we need it in the U.S. Senate race for Richard Mourdock, for Mike Pence in the governor's race, and clearly for President, hopefully by tomorrow, President Romney. Thanks again, and very much look forward to being on your guys' show again soon, guys.
Yeah, we'll get you on for a whole hour, Luke, and we can leisurely go through solving all the rest of the problems. But at that point in time, we'll call you Congressman Messer. But God
I'm calling him that right now.
God bless and keep you, my friend. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Luke.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. This is Rick and Rick at Night, the voice of liberty here in the Ohio River Valley. We'd like to welcome once again to the pre-election show of Rick and Rick at Night a great friend to our show and candidate for the United States Senate, Richard Mourdock. You there, Richard?
I'm there, and all I can say is finally, we're on the big eve of the big day.
How's it feel?
It's hard to put in words. Our campaign began 634 days ago. And to finally reach this point, we started the campaign, and it was called Mission Impossible by some, that you couldn't possibly defeat a long-term incumbent Republican to win the nomination, but we did. We were told going forward that the Democrat super PACs were going to spend so much money that they would come in and destroy me. But we're still standing, and I cannot wait until this time tomorrow. And I'm very confident looking forward, but we're taking nothing for granted. It's going to be a long day tomorrow, too.
We'd just like to review some of the major differences with your opponent as far as to remind the voters why they're voting for you. And as far as Obamacare, the budget, cut, cap, and balance, the Obama stimulus, whatever you want to take on.
If people like Barack Obama, they'll love Joe Donnelly, because the policies of the last 4 years are the policies he's supported. The policies that have continued to keep unemployment at 8% and higher. The kind of policies that have caused our home values to go down 12%. the kind of policies that have caused the cost of a college education of up 25%, the kind of policies that just frankly are wrong for America and have made the world more dangerous, not less dangerous. I believe it's time that we change the federal government so that it's sending a consistent set of signals to American businesses so they know how to invest and have a reason to reinvest in America. When we do that, we're going to see an American renaissance. And when that happens, America is again going to be seen as that preeminent place in the world, loved by our friends and greatly respected, if not feared, by our enemies and opponents.
Richard, this is Rick Berry. I'd like to tell the voters out there that Joe Donnelly, I could respect him. I'll bring up a name, Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich, I disagree with everything he stands for, but he stands behind what he believes, and he's not afraid to say what he believes in. Joe Donnelly appears to be voting one way and talking another, especially in your debates. It's almost like he's mimicking you. All of a sudden he's a conservative, but all of his votes have been to the liberal side. And, there's nothing that bothers me more than a politician that really doesn't stand on principle. They just say whatever they need to say to get elected. I'm afraid that's the way Joe Donnelly is.
Well, there's a pattern here. When he was running for Congress last time, he said he wasn't even sure if he'd vote for Nancy Pelosi if the Democrats took the majority position. This was in 2006. And lo and behold, when he got elected, he did vote for Nancy Pelosi. He voted for her again in 2008. There's something that's big in the Obamacare bill called the medical device tax, and we have a huge healthcare industry that has tremendous impact on in Indiana. He said he was against the medical device tax before he voted for it, and then he voted against it again before he voted for it, and then again now today he's saying he voted against it. He said he would never vote for a national health care bill, but he was the deciding vote on Obamacare. There is a pattern here. Over the last few weeks and months, he's tried to come across as a Republican. He keeps using the name of Dick Lugar, but, Dick Lugar didn't vote for Obamacare. Dick Lugar didn't have the anti-business voting record that Joe Donnelly has. So I think Hoosiers have come to know there's a real choice in this race, and I hope tomorrow they're going to reflect that, and I'm very, very confident they will.
This Rick and Rick at Night, we're talking to Richard Mourdock. And Richard, one of the little codicils that's unknown in Obamacare is the fact that Joe Donnelly voted for Obamacare, which cut $716 billion for Medicare. Now, I'm a physical therapist. I do home health and hospice visits. We're already seeing those cuts.
Richard, before you go any farther, can you define codicil for me? I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm not a lawyer either, and I generally say that with a certain amount of pride. But
Sorry.
Let's just call it, there's a provision there, and you said it exactly right. $716 billion taken out of Medicare. And Mr. Donnelly, when I brought that up in our first debate, kind of waved his arms around about, we're not taking that away from those people. Well, here's who he's taking it away from. To your point exactly, Rick, he's taking it away from the providers of health care services, the doctors and the direct providers. Well, guess what? If they're not going to be paid for service, they're not going to deliver the service. It was a devastating vote. And, I'll take Mr. Donnelly at his word on something here. He said he read the entire Obamacare bill, which has to make him an amazing exception in the U.S. Congress because it's over 1,200 pages long. But if he read all 1,200 pages, how come he didn't note that? And why did it come to be such a big surprise?
It's amazing. And I think it's closer to 2,400. And I actually did read it because we did prep for a town hall meeting because Barron Hill wouldn't. I didn't understand it all, but I understood enough of it. It was massive, and it was the Dodd-Frank bill. That's another thing. Didn't he vote for that?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, another part of the big Obama agenda, which Dodd-Frank for the financial industry is an absolute disaster. And to say it another way, because the financial industry supports all of American business, it's a disaster for all of the American economy.
Once again, this is a Rick and Rick show. This is our night before the election show, and we're talking to Richard Mourdock, and we're just trying to contrast Richard with Joe Donnelly. And obviously, we are big Richard Mourdock fans, giving him a chance to tell the voters one last time what he stands for.
Well, he's a constitutional conservative. I'll speak for him. But also, Richard, I'm going to sit there and say you're Lincoln Ness. not only you understand the lessons from Abraham Lincoln, but you can tell stories like him too.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I just think that that old thing is true, that past is prologue. And I think if you study history and come to understand it, you can see parallels. And you can learn that from mistakes, and you can take advantages of the good moves of the past. And I wish, frankly, we had more people in government who love American history as much as I do, because I think they would react differently when they see the challenges come.
Richard, one thing I like to read the quotes from the founders, and so many of their quotes, it was almost like they were anticipating modern day. They were warning us against what is actually happening right now as far as big government and depending on government and the loss of liberty. It's really amazing. I know you know some of those quotes. You might even throw a couple out if you want to, but it really was like they were written for modern day today.
Well, that's right. The genius of our founding fathers is not the fact that they were ahead of their time. The genius is that they're still ahead of ours. They understood human nature so well. They understood what would happen even if well-intentioned people became leaders without clearly defined boundaries, that even the best, most well-intentioned people will eventually take a nation to tyranny. The trappings of power are something that I don't think the human beings can force away very long. I mean, if you get comfortable and you start to think government is there to serve you, and that you're there and that you can help provide for people, it gets to be almost addictive. And I think we see a lot of that in government, which is one of the reasons, frankly, why we so desperately need term limits in the United States Congress.
One of the things that the opposition puts out as far as, no way, that you're going to be bipartisan. Can you explain your reluctance to adopt other people's principles for your own?
Sure. You said quote the founders a moment ago, or suggested I do. I'll give you a founder's quote on this very subject. Thomas Jefferson once said, "On matters of principle, stand like the rock in the stream. On matters of policy, when you must, go with the flow." And there's a big difference between having an absolute principle and being able to compromise on policy. People say to me, "Will I not compromise on my principle?" In my definition of principle, it means those things that you don't compromise on. And quite clearly stated, here are my principles. Government has grown too big, it costs too much, and as a result, it's taking away from us our own freedom and our own opportunity. And we have to make government smaller. I'll compromise with anyone to make government smaller. I'll work with anyone to make government more efficient and more accountable. But unfortunately, bipartisanship lately, in the last few years, has come to mean, by way of example, the Democrats say, let's spend $100 billion we don't have. And the Republicans say, that's horrible. Let's spend $50 billion we don't have. And then they compromise by spending $75 billion that we don't have. Now, that's bipartisanship, but it's not good policy. It's compromise, but it's not going to lead to a better result nor more freedom. And I simply want to stand for the position that we need to make government smaller, and I'll work to do that.
I haven't seen much of a ground game from the other guys. How's your Army going tonight?
Well, we've got thousands and thousands of people who've been working for us for all 634 days. And it's incredibly humbling, to say it mildly. I know tomorrow we're going to have thousands of people around the state of Indiana standing at polling places, wearing Richard Mourdock shirts, waving Richard Mourdock signs, making phone calls, making sure that folks remember tomorrow is election day, getting them out to vote. I'm incredibly encouraged by that, because I agree with your assessment a moment ago, Rick. I don't see the other side having any kind of ground game at all. I don't see it for John Gregg. I don't see it for Joe Donnelly. And frankly, I'm not surprised, because they've not given the kind of a message that inspires Hoosiers. And it is simply that message that more of the last 4 years is a good thing. And Hoosiers get that the last 4 years have not been America's finest moment. They want to see our country go another direction. They want to see it go the way Indiana has gone the last 8 years, not the way the country's gone the last 4.
Well, like we said, Richard, you drive through Madison, you don't see any Obama signs, you don't see any Donnelly signs. You see tons of Romney signs. You see tons of Mourdock signs. And, we've had a front row seat watching you came to our first, I think it was our second Tea Party a couple years ago. You had not announced for the Senate yet. You were the state treasurer, and you gave a beautiful speech. So we've had a front row seat to watch you, how hard you've been working, your principles, and I think you've been to Madison 5 times, and you have been on the Rick and Rick show. This is the 6th time. So Madison's definitely on the map with you, and boy, tomorrow, folks, we've got a principled man, a man that says what he means and will do what he says, has worked in the private sector most of his life. Please go out and vote for Richard Mourdock tomorrow. I don't think there's any decision there as far as I'm concerned. He's the guy we need to be voting for. So please think about this when you go out tomorrow.
Well, we appreciate those words, and I live at the other end of the Ohio River down there near Evansville, and anytime I'm along the Ohio River, I always feel good about it. And we've got tremendous support across the 9th District, across the 8th District, all of southern Indiana, and frankly across all of Indiana. So I'm not going to do anything more than saying I'm feeling good about tomorrow, and looking forward to seeing those polls close.
We really do appreciate your time, Richard, and God bless and keep you. And thank you for all the energy you've brought to this race. Thank you for your message of restoring liberty where we're losing it. You're a great American, my friend, and we thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Maybe the last word, most appropriate, as we think of Election Day. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have died for the privilege, so please don't let it go to waste. Get out there and do it.
God bless you, Richard.
You too.
Take care, my friend. What a patriot. We have another patriot here, Randy Frye. He's running for the 67th District of the Indiana House of Representatives. Randy, tomorrow, you've run a clean race, pal. The other guy can't say that, but you certainly have.
Let's just get right started.
It's such a privilege to be here on the Rick and Rick show with this lineup that you've had on tonight, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
What do you think? I mean, what have you heard? You've been barnstorming for...
Yeah, well, I'm very confident, not overly so, but very confident, and I believe that Indiana's on the right track. I believe my track record of limited government and keeping Indiana on its budget, it speaks for itself. And, Rick, I have an old fire captain. I'm a retired fireman. I have an old fire captain who used to say, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Well, if you want to look at what I've done, and you can tell just about what I'll be doing. I'll be voting for a balanced budget. I'll be trying to keep the taxpayer dollars in their pockets where they belong, and also I'll be in the legislature. I'll be on the job. I won't be found out of state. I have a perfect attendance to this point.
Teachers unions kind of shot at you as well as the union. I don't know, thugs, but they've been right after you, pal.
Well, I guess there are some folks that have a difference of opinion than I do about keeping the taxpayers' dollars in their pocket. Rick, we're about to return $360 million to the state of Indiana, to the residents, from which that money came from, by the way. And that is no small thing. If you think about it, and I had the Ways and Means Department look it up for me, the average Hoosier pays about $1,400 a year in state tax. And we're going to give approximately $140 back per taxpayer. And that's about 10% tax reduction for your income tax for the state of Indiana. That's significant. That is no small amount of money. And it's also your money returned to you, and you can do what you wish with it. You can invest it. You can spend it. That's real economic stimulus when you put money back into the economy that isn't borrowed.
I loved hearing you say that because, people lose sight of the fact they pay their taxes, and if there's a surplus, most people don't see any reason why they should get their money back. Well, it's their money, and I'm really glad the state is saying that's your money. We've got a surplus. We're going to give it back, and thank God we've got a surplus because the rest of the country isn't in nearly such good shape.
Well, that's right. There's an awful lot of states that are having a tremendous problem. We've heard of cities that are filing bankruptcy. We've heard of states that are having problem with their obligations to pension funds and so on. And Indiana has done a very, very good job of living within our means. we certainly have to fund things. We have to fund projects like you were talking about a while ago with Richard Mourdock, with health care. We have to fund education. We know that, and we have to fund it adequately. But we also have to be careful that we have accountability with that funding. And we have to be careful that that funding is equal across the state. I talked before about my alma mater, Batesville High School. They have very high-rated schools, yet they're one of the least amount of money per student in the state. So it's not just about money. There's more there than that.
You know, you talked about the state having a surplus, and that's a great thing. But you alluded earlier, you and I in conversation, that we have to prepare for the possibility that President Obama could get reelected. And you told me some things about what the state's prepared for. Well, in case that happens. What's going to happen to our budget? What could potentially happen to our budget if the president's reelected and all of his spending goes through? Well,
one of the things that we'll have to do is we'll have to make a huge adjustment for the health care bill. That liability on Indiana alone is going to put our budget in a tremendous strain. So we have to hold on to our budget surplus so that we can balance that in effect, if that does in fact come about. We also have, Rick, the largest industry in Indiana is agriculture. And agriculture, as you know, has taken a tremendous hit this year with the drought. And we really don't know how much money that's going to affect the state's budget. And so to spend your cash surplus is to make you very vulnerable. You know, I'm a former business owner. I know you're a business owner. And one of the things that a business owner wants to do is retain his cash flow. Once that cash flow gets away from you, if your operating expenses go up unexpectedly, three bad things happen. You either borrow money, lay people off, or go out of business. And so we as a state have to be careful with the money that we have to make sure that we can get through those difficult times.
Well, it sounds like there is some planning in the works to at least combat the worst case scenario if Obama gets reelected and he does try to push through Obamacare. I feel good that you guys are at least planning on that.
We are having caucus meetings. We'll continue to do that and try to be vigilant to make sure that we keep the money that we need to operate this state.
Except for the fact that Romney's going to take this country by landslide tomorrow. You've heard it on Rick and
I love
Rick.
you saying that, Rick, and I have a tendency to agree with you. But, you know, for the people that are on Obama's side, aren't you glad that he's saving us so much money? Have you seen your insurance premiums? Have you heard of all the problems associated with it? You know, Randy, we've only got about a minute, and I always like to describe you as the hardest working man in politics. I probably said that about every candidate tonight, but you really are, and I've been impressed ever since I first met you of how hard you go everywhere.
Thank you.
So, you know, you got about a minute left. You know, we're getting real close. Is there anything you want to say to the voters?
Yeah. First off, no matter what happens tomorrow in the vote count, I'm already victorious because I've gotten to meet hundreds, if not thousands of people I would never have gotten to meet and touched lives that I never would have gotten to touch, and I am therefore the benefactor of that. I've been very blessed to have represented House District 67 the last 2 years, and I look forward to that opportunity for as long as the people will allow. And the last thing I would ask for you to do is pray for all of our candidates and pray for their families. This is a very difficult time for them, and I've read where God chooses the leaders of this nation.
Absolutely. And we respect candidates from both sides for putting their name out there and going for it.
Yeah, but we respect the R's more than D's this time because that ties in with the president and his regime. Randy, God bless and keep you. Thank you for being here, pal.
Thanks so much.
Randy Frye, everybody. Thanks, Randy.
And we have a special mystery guest that I promoted, and he's special to Madison, but he's no mystery to us. City Councilman Kevin Kellems. And Kevin, thanks for being here. We also got you in, and he was a staffer for Senator Lugar. And there's an ulterior motive in having him here today.
Back when I was, well, young.
Now you're venerable.
You're still young. Because if you're not still young, then you're making me feel bad.
All I got to say is Randy Frye puts the mic too high, so I'm going to adjust it. He's taller than I am. I did work for Senator Lugar for many years. Great man, and it was a terrific experience. It was a long time ago. I got to tell you, I'm voting for Richard Mourdock for a number of reasons. And one thing I would like to basically point out to listeners, if you're listening now and you've decided, number one, that you're definitely going to vote for Mitt Romney for president, or, I'm not saying or you're going to vote for Mike Pence for governor, or you're going to vote for Luke Messer for Congress. If any of those things are true, I would encourage you to look deep in your heart and think about it overnight and even tomorrow, and consider that if you do not vote in the U.S. Senate race, or if you do not vote for Richard Mourdock, you're essentially diluting your own vote. You are arguing with yourself. He is on the same team for the same issues. We're talking about whether you're for or against Obamacare. If you're for it, please vote for the liberal congressman from northern Indiana who's never been to Madison. If you're for higher taxes, please vote for the liberal congressman from northern Indiana who's never been to Madison. And if you're against religious freedom, please vote for that guy. If these things do not apply, please consider voting for Richard Mourdock. I am, and I worked for Richard Lugar for 8 years. Richard Mourdock was a 2-term statewide elected official. So there are an awful lot of people who must have been wrong if our state treasurer has been elected twice and you're not on board. Most importantly to me, in addition to job creation, is national security. And I am very uncomfortable, and I think a lot of other people are, about where we are under President Obama on national security. So these are important issues. It's a big election. I hope you vote for each of these conservatives, and I really hope you will consider, if you are on the fence or leaning against or undecided on the Senate race, that this is one team in this case.
I want to say, Kevin, it's great to have you in the studio. Kevin is a fellow city councilman with me, and I'm really proud to serve with him, and it's been great, almost a year now, Kevin. We might remind the listeners out there, I mean, a lot of people think if Mitt Romney gets elected, which we pray he will and we think he will, that Obamacare can be overturned. But they need to understand how important it is that we win the Senate, too. If we don't win the Senate, and if we don't get a majority in the Senate, then a constitutionally changed country is going to occur. If Obamacare goes through, this country will never be the same as it has been for this 235 years. Kevin, you might expound on that to the listeners, that it's not only important that we get Romney in there, but we've got to get guys like Mourdock in there, or this thing is going to go through and we're not going to be able to stop it. And that's how the Senate works, and that's how Washington works. It's a game of numbers, and if you have the majority, you have the power. The president needs a majority in the Senate, especially. The Republicans already have a majority in the House, and that will hold. And Luke Messer will be our new congressman. He's a great guy. He was here in Madison today. Like Richard Mourdock, he's been here many times. But in the Senate, which is particularly critical because it's a closer play, the president's policies can be either diluted, defeated, or advanced in the U.S. Senate. And right now, frankly, a vote for Donnelly is a vote for Obama. And it's that simple when it comes to Obamacare. And we have, Kevin, not just Obamacare. Not only do we have to get that repealed, I mean, it's just critical. But we have a Senate now that hasn't passed a budget in over 3 years. I mean, that's unconstitutional. So if we keep this Senate majority in the hands of the Democrats, this kind of thing is going to continue. It's not just Obamacare. They're not doing their duty, constitutional duty as senators, to not pass a budget for 3 years, plus Obamacare going through. I mean, this is really important and really critical. And we're not talking about a guy that's just a Republican and a conservative. We're talking about a great person, a man whose words probably got misconstrued a little bit a couple weeks ago. We're talking about a guy who tearfully is protecting the right to life. And Richard's gotten excoriated over it, but he's a man of principles, and he stood behind his words. Well, it is difficult to understand, but if you are out on the campaign trail for a year or two, and these are actually tough jobs and tough assignments, especially when they're statewide, the idea that you're not allowed to get one sentence sideways, and that you will be judged on that one sentence instead of being judged on your lifetime of service is a pretty remarkable situation.
Another way people might want to think about it is if you are comfortable with Dan Coats in the U.S. Senate, we probably shouldn't cancel out his vote, because that is what a vote for Joe Donnelly will be. It will be canceling out Coats every single time, whether it comes to taxes, budget, religious freedom, Obamacare, or national security.
And again, I would remind the listeners that Joe Donnelly, you're talking about his votes. He's run from his votes the whole campaign. He's running like he's a conservative like Mourdock. So those kind of guys really bug the crap out of me, because they really don't have principles. They don't really stand on they don't have a moral compass, I don't think. They're just doing what they're going to say, whatever they got to say to get elected. Richard Mourdock is not that kind of guy.
And remember, folks, if it's not close, they can't cheat.
We can do this.
We can do this.
And what everybody in our listening area needs to do is call your friends. If you're in a grocery line, you need to talk to strangers. They have to vote tomorrow. If you don't vote, you're voting for the Obama regime. If you don't vote, you're voting for more liberals. If you don't vote, you got no room to gripe after the election results are known.
And when you do vote, this is Kevin Kellems again, when you do vote, please hold your elected officials accountable going forward, regardless of party. I want to make an argument for transparency, accountability, openness in government, a strong national defense. If you agree with that, I hope you will vote in the U.S. Senate race for Richard Mourdock. I know many of you will already be voting for Mike Pence for governor, for Luke Messer for Congress. So we appreciate your interest in this.
You've got to do it. You've got to push the R button tomorrow. I'm sorry, guys. The people that are voting or that are running on the Democrat ticket are de facto approving Barack Hussein Obama's regime. That can't happen anymore. They're part of that. You can't get a little dirty. We're running out of time. Kevin, thank you for being here. We'll get you back on the show.
Yeah, I want to say, Kevin, you did an excellent job. And 4 years ago when Barack Obama said, I want to fundamentally change America, people didn't really understand that he really does want to change our country. And if you don't realize that by now, you're not paying attention. But Kevin, you did a great job. I think Richard would have been proud of you. He could be listening right now, so excellent job.
Thank you.
Either one of the Richards. We're going to be back again in another month with the Rick and Rick at Night Show. It depends on you, the voter, what kind of country we broadcast in. We'd like to thank Tom for running the board tonight, and we also like to thank Lisa for shepherding everybody over at the Boneyard Grill. We're not there tonight. Sorry about that, but I think Rick and I might have a cold one over there. And good night, Madison and America. God bless and keep you, our listeners, in the most wonderful country in the whole wide world. Harry, tell us a poor one.
Good night, everybody.